Hello, everybody. It is the Brazil Expat Journal, the BJ you can trust. We are back again, and I want to thank everybody that's been listening and that's been subscribing to the page and liking the page. Don't forget to hit that little bell so you get notifications of when we are on. But in case you don't know, it's every other Monday. We are here talking about Latin America, South America's biggest country, Brazil, in all its wonders. And tonight we got Andre on. Bit of a world traveler, but he's made a longer than usual pit stop in Brazil. So we're going to talk about his life here in Rio de Janeiro. He was just in São Paulo. He interviewed me, so it was weird for me to be on the other side of the table being interviewed. But real nice guy. And we're going to talk to him in just a second. But I do want to tell you guys that this Friday, I went to see my friend Rebecca at her book signing. So let me just share that with you real quick. And she will be in Rio, and she'll be all over Brazil. She was on our show. What was it, Pete? Like a couple weeks ago? 2 shows ago? I forgot now. I think it was
Yeah,
2
so
shows
like
ago.
a month ago.
Yeah, so I'll link that in the comments, guys, so you can listen to that interview we did with her. Real interesting woman. She's traveled to 32 countries, but she spoke a lot about places in Brazil to visit that are off the beaten path. And she's good at that. She showed us stuff I never even heard of. It was really awesome. But her Instagram page is Rebecca Alathea. In Portuguese, you pronounce it Alathea, but just for the spelling there, it's a TH. Alathea. And you can watch our interview. Like I said, I'll post it on the comments, the link to it. And you can get her agenda. She'll be in Rio, I think, next week or the week after. So definitely this Sunday, I think she's going to be in Rio. So she's all over the place. She's a traveler. That's what it is. But let's tonight talk to Andre. He's going to tell us about his life in Rio, and then we're going to compare São Paulo and Rio because those are the two major cities that people come to when they want to settle in Brazil. Okay, it's São Paulo and Rio. You got Salvador as a third
Salvador's
option.
up there.
It's up there, but it's a distant third compared to São Paulo, Rio. Salvador and then Curitiba is probably in last place. But most folks are either here and there. So we'll compare the cities a little bit and talk to Andre about his time here. So what's up, Andre?
Yo,
Hey, nice to meet you.
nice to meet you, brother. I love Canada.
Thanks.
Oh, you've been to Canada. You're world traveling all the way up to Canada. You're everywhere.
Yeah, Canada was like one of the places I wanted to retire in and move to. I love Vancouver. I love Toronto. I love Montreal. I love Canadians. I used to have a Canadian girlfriend from Victoria, so a lot of
That's
time
my
in Canada.
hometown, brother.
Oh, sweet, nice place.
Yeah.
Well, tell the audience though, Andre, where are you from originally?
So I'm from Chicago, Illinois, and I lived there for most of my life. But back in 2019, I sold my house and my car, and I moved to Colombia.
And how long did you stay in Colombia?
So the
Yeah.
original plan was to stay in Colombia for about 6 months, and then kind of how Americans can do the 6 months, and then you can 3 months renew, and then travel someplace else. So I was going to go from Colombia to Brazil. Then the pandemic happened and ruined everything. So
I see.
For everybody.
But what got that? What put the bug in you to travel? Like, what made you think, "Hey, I'm gonna sell everything"? That's crazy. You sold everything. I didn't know that.
well, it was there was this YouTuber that I was watching, Ace Live, and he wasn't like some, most of the travelers were always people like Rick Stees, or these guys were like professional travelers.
Yes.
And it was something that was never on my radar. I visited you know Canada and like Puerto Rico, but I never really thought about like going to Brazil or Colombia or like any place in Latin America or Europe even. um but I watched that and I realized that, like, there's this other guy, Feel Good Travel or Feel Good Travel. and he was in Europe, and it's just seeing these guys doing it, and they were just regular people. I was like, you know what, I could do that too. And I was teaching during the day. I was teaching English at city colleges, and at night I was bartending and managing restaurants. So I kind of got tired of like the nightlife, like having a crazy like party nightlife all the time too. So I wanted to do something different.
Yeah, I think that's something that has opened up a little bit the paradigm of who can travel, and especially when it comes to Black folks. Both Peter and I knew Watif, rest in peace, but he was a guy that was a big proponent of Black folks traveling because we Black folks don't really get that travel attention. Let's say, when it's this idea of retiring abroad and this and that. You look at all the pamphlets; it's always a bunch of older white folks. So it's exciting. It's an exciting time for not just Black folks, but folks in general who are tired of whatever it is that their home country has to offer. And they realize there's a whole world out there where you can retire to, travel to, whether it's Europe, Asia, Latin America. You have so many options. So it's cool that you took that big leap. So was your original plan? You said you came to Colombia and then you wanted to go to Brazil, but was your plan to end up in Brazil via Colombia, or like how did Brazil become like it's starting to become, I guess, home base for you?
Well, when I was in college, I think I might have been 20 or maybe 21, 22. I was at the library and I checked out this CD. This is back in the day when people checked out CDs. I guess people probably still check out CDs, but it was a CD. This is Samba, and I really liked the music. And actually, even when I was a little kid, I remember hearing that song like da 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 da. It's like some sort of dance from Natal, some like style. But and I don't know, I just always wanted to go to Brazil. Also, it just was just really appealing. The music was cool. The women in Brazil are like famous for being beautiful, and I love the language. So it was always just like appealing to me, but it just seemed like something that would never happen because it was so far away.
Hmm. I
Yeah,
got
it's
you.
not really though. I flew directly from Chicago to Sao Paulo when I moved here,
Mm.
and yeah, it wasn't. It was far from the longest flight I've ever taken. It goes by pretty quick as far as long distance flights go.
That's what,
Yeah, but
11-hour flight. How long was that from Chicago to?
11, 11, I think.
Yeah, for me it was 11 to get down here. But
Yeah.
but I think I don't know if this is what you meant, Andre. So correct me if I'm wrong. But far away, not just in distance, but I think in just a reality. I think for a lot of people, it just seems like a distant reality, moving
Yeah,
to
it's like a made
another
up
country.
place.
Like maybe Mexico, and a lot of Americans end up in Mexico, but like beyond Mexico, it's like, yeah, that's the wilderness. Like, I don't know if I'm willing to do that. So I don't know. Is that what you mean, or did you just mean by distance
no,
kilometers?
I actually meant distance because because Colombia, even when I went to Colombia, it was only 3 hours, like 3 hours to get to Colombia.
Okay.
Um, so it just seems like okay, so it probably isn't that far in terms of like world travel, but for someone who's never really thought about traveling, I think, and I noticed that a lot of my subscribers are really big on Colombia. Colombia is really appealing, and Mexico is really appealing because it's a very short flight, and it's affordable as well. And I think people don't even think about Brazil, or a lot of people probably don't think about Europe just because that distance, like that over 5 or 6 hours. I guess Brazil is like 5 or 6 hours. 6 hours from Miami. It's not that long. Um, but yeah, also it's just kind of a foreign concept too, of going to Brazil.
And where did
Yeah.
you land in Brazil?
So my first time in Brazil was last year in May. I kind of just got fed up with being in Colombia, being in lockdown. So I left in May 2021, landed in Rio, and then I ended up moving and living in like Baja Tijuca, Gloria, Flamengo, um, Ipanema, Praia Charitas. So I lived in like a bunch of different neighborhoods in in Rio. And I stayed for 5 months. Then I left in November, went to Ecuador, went to the United States, went to Colombia, and then came back to Brazil in January.
And now your plan is to stay here?
Yes, so I'm actually still in Sao Paulo,
Mm-hmm.
and tomorrow I'm going to extend my visa for another 60 days because I'm filling out the forms to get my student visa. So then once I have my student visa, I'll be able to stay for a year or two, 1 year, and then I could extend it for another year if I decide to. So yeah, my plan is to stay. Um, and if I do go, I was just thinking maybe taking like a couple months to visit Argentina and Uruguay, but I want to end up in Brazil.
I hear a lot of good things about Uruguay. People that travel there love it. By the way, you had mentioned your YouTube page, and there it is, guys. Andre every other day. He's got dating and safety tips, 4-year review, Apple Watch, Carnival, the good, the bad, Gringo Brazil. So he got a mix of topics, but you do get a lot of stuff about his life here in Brazil. So follow his channel, please. I'm subscribed already. Click the little bell there so you get notifications always. And tell us, okay, your impressions of Rio de Janeiro. What do you think of the city? Why are you there,
So
etc.?
I actually live about 40 minutes outside of Rio in Niteroi, um, which is a little bit more chill. It's actually it's a lot more chill because there's not really any parties. There's not a lot of like going on in terms of music and stuff like Rio. My first impression of Rio is amazing, man. It's a really, really, really good city. One of my favorite cities that I've ever been to. Um, but it's a little too much for me because I lived in Chicago as a nightclub manager, so I've lived like the nightlife and going out and partying and stuff, and I do like it, and I may move back to Rio, uh, maybe next year, but for right now, I'm just like looking to chill. But like Rio, there's like great restaurants. There's always something going on. Probably my one issue I have with Rio is a lot of the people you meet are tourists, and I tend
Yeah,
not to like tourists because they're just very transient. It's like everybody you
yeah,
meet, it's like, oh yeah, I'm leaving tomorrow. So,
yeah.
I spoke to a lot of folks before we came on about Rio, and they say this a lot about the South Zone. So folks that have been there for a while, they'll usually say, move out of the South Zone. If you're gonna live in Rio, don't live in Copacabana, Ipanema, those places. Go to Baja, go to Niteroi. Even though it's across the bridge. What's the other place that I'm terrible with? Botafogo. Um, there's a little beach there that is really famous, and I forgot the name, but it's kind of hidden away. I'm terrible
like
with
Vermelho, Praia Vermelha, it's like where the military thing is.
maybe Praia Vermelha, but I think it's another one. I'll look it up while we're talking here because a friend of mine lives there. Um, so yeah, you're gonna get the tourists, guys, if you go to Rio, because that's what is sold to the world, pretty much,
Mm-hmm.
is Rio de Janeiro. I mean, everybody's heard of Rio de Janeiro. Girl from Ipanema, one of the most famous songs in history. So it's in the imagination of most travelers. Rio, and then you get São Paulo, which is not in the imaginations of most people because it's a
No, no.
big
That's it.
old
We get a lot of long term expats here, but we don't get tourists much.
not really. A lot of business tourism. São Paulo is the hub
Yeah, in town
for
on
business
business.
tourists.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why I'm here. I'm in town on business, so
Yes. So then you get those. But you said it's a little bit quieter in Niteroi. One thing people really um, get worried about with Rio and Sao Paulo to an extent is crime, things of that nature. How is Niteroi compared to Rio when it comes to that part of just walking out, doing what you got to do?
yeah, it's definitely a lot less opportunity for crime. There's fewer targets, I guess, because there's not as many tourists walking around. So you don't really get people going around looking for tourists. So any
Mm.
any crime that happens there is probably mostly like crimes of opportunity. I've never been bothered in Niteroi. I never really got bothered in Rio, but more people would come up to me in Rio and ask me for money or try to sell me things. And I was telling you this when we were talking. No one has actually even said anything to me in Sao Paulo. No one's asked me for anything. But in Niteroi, and especially in the neighborhood I'm in, there's basically just like the same group of homeless people, and I see them every day. And they don't really say anything. They're just sitting there, by the ATMs, which is a weird thing about Brazil to me is that like homeless people chill outside of ATMs and banks,
Yes.
which is would never happen in the
Sometimes
States.
inside. Sometimes
Oh,
inside the bank.
really?
Yes, here in
Wow,
São Paulo, yes. I've seen it.
that's wild. Um, but yeah, it definitely has that more. It's like a suburbanite upscale vibe. It's just a lot more chill. It's, it's cheaper, but it's more expensive, oddly enough. So there's some things that are
Yeah.
cheaper
Yeah,
than Rio. There's some things that are more expensive.
And for those who
yeah.
happen to be looking at the screen, I'm showing some pictures here of Niteroi. And I think what separates a lot of that crime is this bridge here, because there's a bridge to
Yes.
get to Niteroi. So that it's similar to Florianopolis, which is considered one of the safest cities in Brazil, and a city a lot of people really love. They're like, if you think Rio is
Hmm.
something, go to Florianopolis. Um, and it's a little island, so it's a bridge to get over there. So that kind of cuts out a lot of the opportunity for crime because there's no escape route. By the way, the beach I was thinking of is Praia do Recreio. Recreio is a beach in Rio de Janeiro, which seems to be a little bit more family oriented and quiet. So there it is. There's Recreio Beach right there. I got a buddy of mine that lives there, and it's a little far away, as you can see. It's not in the hub there of the south side of Rio. Um, Now, when you came here to São Paulo, what were your impressions of this city?
Well, my first impression of Sao Paulo was I took the bus, and I think I've gotten kind of used to this. Just living in South America is a certain level of homelessness and people in the streets.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when I first went to Colombia, it was the first thing that struck me was the people in the streets, but the dilapidated infrastructure, and that's one thing that didn't strike me about Sao Paulo. The first thing that struck me about Sao Paulo was just all the homeless people hanging out, and then it was just a big city, man. It's like everywhere I looked, it was just buildings and more buildings. And I'm from Chicago, so it's not like I haven't seen big cities, but Chicago, you have your skyscrapers and high rises downtown,
Right.
and then it's like smaller buildings. But in Sao Paulo, and I'm standing on like the 20th floor of this Airbnb right now, and I look out my window and it's just all skyscrapers
Yes.
as far as I can see, or tall apartment buildings. And
And it doesn't stop either. It
no, it
just
doesn't.
goes
It's kind of
on
intimidating
and
sometimes.
on forever. Like, I mean, there are clearly defined city limits. I've traveled outside the city limits and stuff, but I mean, like, you can travel for what seems like days in this city and not leave the city limits.
Yeah,
Yeah,
guys,
and
it's full of
for me,
buildings.
I grew up in Chicago right by the beach. And when I lived in Colombia, I lived by a river. When I was in Ecuador, I lived like right on the water. In Puerto Rico, I was right on the water. And in Panama, I was right on the water. So every place I've traveled to, I've always been on water. And so being
Right.
in Sao Paulo is kind of, when I went back, I was in Bogota and I wasn't on the water, and I was in the states and I wasn't on the water, but like Sao Paulo, like I can't see any water. There is some rivers or something like a river.
There's one river and one glorified ditch.
Yeah. So I think I saw that ditch. But
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
I
the
think it's the
it's
TNT. Yeah.
wild,
famous
man.
Pinheiros River here, which is
Yeah, although it has been cleaned up a lot in recent
yeah,
years, it
they've been
doesn't even
cleaning it
stink
up.
anymore.
It's what do you call it? Election year, man. The governor wants to be
Mm.
president, so he's cleaning that shit up. But it's
I
infamously
still
polluted.
wouldn't swim in it.
No, but that's the river he's talking about. Now,
Yeah.
what you're saying is really interesting as far as São Paulo. And for folks that come down here, I always give them this advice. I'm like, don't judge the city by the neighborhood you end up in because it's such a big city. And there are places, and I'm somebody who unabashedly says I love São Paulo to death. I really love this
Hmm.
city, But there are places here that I absolutely abhor. Like if I had to stay there for a week, I would just be depressed and leave. Um, so you can't judge a city by the neighborhood that you're in because it's so big. And this river, by the way, is what I was telling Andre yesterday when we met. It's kind of a division line because as soon as you cross the river, then you
Yeah,
get to the neighborhoods. Like I live, if you're looking at the screen, guys, I'm putting up here Butantan. I look at Butantan. It's not a sea
yes.
of buildings; it's a sea of green. So
There
it's
are some pretty tall buildings out here
they're
too, though.
starting to come. I know it's so frustrating. They weren't there 5 years ago, but they're starting to come. But for the most part, it's houses, it's green, it's little parks, little praças that like they say here in Portuguese, little squares. And
Hmm.
it's a whole different city. Like this doesn't even look like I'm showing you the picture of the same place we were in, like the last photo I showed you. So you really, really, really have to um, figure the city out. I went to Rio, and I have no qualms in saying that I'm not a fan of Rio, but I was in the South Side. I'm trying to be open minded. I've been there 3 or 4 times, and I have a friend of mine, Stephanie, who's also, was a Rio hater until she went to these other neighborhoods. I think she said good things about Santa Terezinha, something like that, which is kind of like more of a hippie neighborhood, and she's loving it now. So I'm gonna try next time I go to Rio, move out of the South Side and see other parts of the city. But it's undeniable when you get to Rio, you see it. It's like, oh, I get why this is the marvelous city. It's gorgeous. You see the mountains, the
It's
haze,
beautiful, yeah.
like the dew that kind of sticks in the air, the beaches, and then you get to São Paulo, you're like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah,
So
Sao Paulo is not an aesthetically pleasing city, really.
it isn't. It isn't. But my point, Pete, is that then you start to explore Sao Paulo. And then you find a gorgeous park here. You find this beautiful little neighborhood there. You find this street with all these cute little cafes over here. You end up at a park over there. And you're like, wow, like Sao Paulo is gorgeous too. It's just not a place that's going to stand out right away as soon as you land. Like when you land in Guarulhos, you're greeted by vultures, on top
Right.
on top of the tarmac, whatever. And you're like, oh wait, where the hell am I? And Guarulhos is like the ugliest city ever. And in the drive into Sao Paulo, you're on this big industrial highway. It's like,
Hmm.
why am I here? And it takes a little while. It took me about a year to figure Sao Paulo out and realize, oh wow, this is a really special city with a lot of history, a lot of great architecture if you go to the right places, and a vibrant culture, of a lot of mixed people. So it takes a little
Yeah. My
Yeah, I think
brother.
if I would like I would like Sao Paulo if they got rid of Centro and put a lake.
Well,
That's kind of what Praça Republica is, actually. I
yes,
mean, it's a
yes,
small
because
lake,
everybody
but
swims there. In
yeah.
Here in São Paulo, we have a place called, let me see, Guarapiranga. That's how you spell that. The Guarapiranga Reservoir, and this is the São Paulo beach. As you can see there, you have boats and stuff, and folks go swimming in this big old reservoir that they have on the south side of the city. I've been there. It's pretty fun. But yeah, you're not going to get beaches in Sao Paulo, unfortunately, unless you travel about an hour south. Start getting to Praia Grande and Itaiaém and Santos and all these places. But
Yeah, which is not far. It's only like a 15 hail bus ride. But if you go, like, you're spending the night.
yes, yeah, you're not coming back. But if you want the mini beach feel, you gotta go to Guarapiranga. That's about
Yeah.
as close as you can get, and you can swim there. The water's clean in Guarapiranga, quote unquote clean. Um, Now, guys, a question that a lot of folks have when they're choosing cities is price. So you said Niteroi is cheap but not cheap. What do you mean by that?
Well, it's cheaper than Rio in terms of real estate. It's
Mm-hmm.
Apartments are a lot cheaper. I think Rio is overpriced because of all the tourists there, so everybody's doing Airbnb,
Mm-hmm.
and I I was paying 450 for a 3 bedroom in uh Barranquilla in Colombia, and
Mm.
now I'm paying like 450 for. Actually, my rent went up, so now I'm paying like almost 500 for a 2 bedroom in Niteroi. But I just think prices are more expensive in Rio for rent. But then there's like there's a lot of fancy restaurants and fancy stores in Niteroi, so some things like that can be more expensive. But I think overall, Rio is just going to be more expensive, and there's just more to do. Um, and that's another thing about Rio is that there's so much to do. There
Right.
really like there's always something going on in terms of parties. I've heard that Sao Paulo has better parties, but the thing about Rio is you can always go to the beach. So the beach is always an option.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
so if you have nothing in your life, you don't have any money or friends, you can just go to the beach.
Although you can still drop a lot of money at the beach in a day
Very
if you
true.
have it. Yeah.
If you want to, but you could also, probably the best date that I can think of, and this is a date I always did in Chicago, is just go to the beach because
Yeah,
you can just go to the beach and just get a coconut, and there you go.
exactly.
Yeah, a couple Brazilians have told me this. They say Rio is a great day city because, like you said, you just go to the beach. Like you got nothing to do, just go to the beach. And São Paulo's a better night city because here we
Yeah.
got the big clubs, the bars. Like it just stuff starts happening here at 1 a.m. and then
Yeah,
you'll
and
go.
Polistanos don't even like start going out until like 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah, and 10 is early. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
Yeah,
I
the
mean
party really gets rocking at about 1, 2 in the morning.
I know. I was telling Andre. I said, look, because we set up to meet on Sunday, and I told him when I go out, which is not very often now these days, but when I go out, I usually can wake up at 11, even if I've drunk a bit. And I messaged him, I think at 11, saying I just got home. I'm
Yeah.
just getting in, so I need to take a power nap if I'm gonna be any good today. So, and I left the house. Yeah, it was like around one or two that I left the house to go to the party. That's when people start showing up. So São Paulo's a very nocturnal city. You go
I,
out
I think
Yeah.
I think that's true for the party scene in Rio too, because what happens in Rio is people, they start late and they party till 2 or 3, and then they go to the beach. So it's probably different than Sao Paulo, where the clubs will just keep staying open. But a lot of the clubs do stay open till 4 or 5, but everybody just kind of ends up at the beach. And somebody just said Rio de Janeiro
Yeah.
nightlife sucks. I'm gonna agree with you. I think as someone who's
okay.
managed nightclubs for 20 years in Chicago, and yeah, I don't like going to clubs in Rio. Like if I'm gonna party in Rio, I'd rather go to like a house party or go to like samba, like
Yeah,
live
they're really
music, or go
big
to the
on the
beach.
samba scene in Rio too. Like a lot of the nightlife revolves around
It's so
live samba.
it's much better to go to like a samba party than to go to like a club, because the clubs are just,
Yes.
I think, are just kind of trash. Like in Lapa, they're fun, but people don't really dance, and when they do dance, it's not really like they're not dancing with you. So, uh, global paper, you're right.
But one thing you were saying about the cost of living that I wanted to comment on, I used to live in Jundiaí, which is it's a small city. It's not exactly a suburb of Sao Paulo, but it's like you can drive from there to Sao Paulo in an hour. And it's kind of like for the people who want to escape the city, right? So it's people who have money. They work in the city. They work in Sao Paulo, and they live in Jundiaí. And as a result, like yeah, like a lot of the property prices are cheaper because it's not considered prime real estate, but everything else is actually more expensive than Sao Paulo because it's a smaller city. So you don't have the options that you do in Sao Paulo. Like Sao Paulo is huge, so some neighborhoods, the cost of food or drinks or clothes or whatever might be more expensive, but you can just go to another neighborhood and get that shit dirt cheap. Whereas in a smaller city where you have these commuters, the property's cheaper, but everything else is actually more expensive because there's no competition. There's nowhere else to go, and they know you
Yeah,
got money.
yeah.
Uh,
There's not a lot of variety in Niteroi, and there's not really a lot of variety in Rio either. Um, I've only been in Sao Paulo for a week, and I haven't done that much, but I already know that there's probably like a huge variety of restaurants and food. There's so many people here that there just has to be more culture
Yeah.
here and more variety. And that's one of the things when I was walking around with Phil, and I just noticed the there's a lot of goth and rock here and alternative and hippie, and
Yeah.
there's just so many different types of people here. Where if you go to Rio, there's like people who wear swimsuits and there's people who aren't currently in swimsuits. Like there's not really that much happening in terms of like fashion per se. There is like you'll get people in LeBlanc dressing fancy, but when it comes down to it, it's like flip flops and bikinis is in shorts.
Yes. Although I actually did like that because we kind of frown on that here. Like walking around. Like there are neighborhoods, central, pretty much anything goes. But you're kind of looked down on if you walk around shirtless and shoeless here. I noticed in Rio de Janeiro, like half the population does that.
Yeah, you can
Yes.
definitely see a lot of old dudes with a big pot belly and the cracks showing.
Yeah.
Definitely happens a lot, just all over the city.
Oh, yes. It's we were talking about that yesterday too, because here they judge you a lot by your dress. It's just to go to the mall, just to go to like McDonald's, people get dressed
Yeah.
up, and you're like, good lord, it's so much pressure to always kind of look your best here. Unless again, like if you're out in the Bajos, it's a little bit more laxed, but you start getting closer to not real Saint, the actual downtown, Saint Through, but the downtown as far as where everything's happening, Paulista, Villa Madalena, all that stuff. Then yeah, folks get dressed up to the T to just do something basic. You're like, good lord, just walking the dog looking good. Um,
Yeah.
Go to Teto or Terraza Rooftop Lounge in São Paulo. All top models. The talent in Rio is average, in my opinion. Ooh, this guy's a São Paulo
Okay, I
lover.
now I have to disagree completely with Global Paper,
Okay,
because I am in love with the women of Rio and that
The
region just in general.
karaoke's.
And I think it's probably like a difference culturally, maybe because like the further north you get, it's more African mixed, I think. But I don't know. From what I've seen in Sao Paulo versus what I've seen in Rio, and of course I've only been in Sao Paulo for a week, but I think Rio is more my style of. I don't necessarily go for the top model type women.
there you go. We got
Exactly.
tattoo
Yeah.
on the screen there, so you got all the
Yes, that is not my market right there.
Right.
yeah, not
Yeah, I can't afford
mine.
that shit, man.
Tattoo, and what did he say? Terraço? Is that Terraço Italia? Because I've been there, which is a really
Yeah,
nice
I think
restaurant.
so, man.
Let me see here. Terraça, São Paulo.
No, this place is famous, but it costs like $100 for a drink or something like that.
Oh, I know where this is. Yeah, it's definitely not the one I was thinking about. So Terraça Rooftop. Oh, it's
Now, when
just
you
a
say
little
$100,
lounge.
you're talking about 100 reais.
Yeah, 100
Yes.
reais.
Okay, so
Yes.
that's like Chicago drink prices.
Yeah,
There you
okay.
go. Terraça Rooftop Sunset. Oh, man. So there you go. So if you're looking, well, that's the thing though. If your thing is coming and really showing off, want to like really go to like the exclusive places, Sao Paulo does beat Rio for that. But I don't know. It depends on the crowd. Like I'm not into that crowd, So
I I
Exactly.
avoid I avoid that crowd with a passion. Like I lived in that
yes,
crowd in Chicago where everybody did bottle service. You got to have like a $500 pair of shoes, and like
Right.
now one of my favorite things about being in Rio and being in Niteroi is like you can have a date with somebody and like they just want a beer. They're just like, I'll take a beer,
Yeah.
and that's
yeah,
it. And like that's it. Like
Yeah.
whereas if this sort of like nightclub thing of like oh, it's this much. I don't know. I just like the laid backness of just being able to like go to the beach or like for the first time in my life, I wore flip flops uh,
yeah.
on a date, and that was in Niteroi. Like I've never worn like flip flops on a date before. So
Well,
Yeah. And I got to say one thing for the real girls too is like you do got the beach scene, right? So I mean, you can just sit there, pull up a lawn chair, and just enjoy the view. Really, you know.
Well, and also everybody in Rio, like they're tourists. So most of the people who are in Rio, and this is another reason I moved out of Rio to Niteroi, is because I'm actually trying to like settle down here and start a relationship.
Hmm.
And everybody who's in Rio is basically looking to party, and so it's much easier to get like a one night stand than like a you can definitely get a relationship, but there's more opportunities to meet people who are not just there for the weekend or just there for to party
Right.
or have a good time, so
That's a great bit of advice for the folks that are coming down here. Yes, South Zone, all that stuff is party city, and São Paulo to an extent. If you go to to these ritzy places, it's party zone. And if you're looking to settle down, a bit more, you do want to move to the suburbs. You do want to get to these parts of the city where you can just have a beer with somebody as a date, and that'll be enough, or go to a park as a date. But when I lived, like, for example, I lived in Moema for about a year or so, and it's considered an upscale neighborhood here, not like the most upscale. And yeah, that's was expected. Like if we go out on a date, we have to go to a really nice restaurant. We have to, we're showing here pictures of Moema on the screen. It's close to Ibirapuera Park, so you gotta spend, because people are expecting that. But if you are in Butantã or Jabaquara, Saúde, there's, these names probably mean nothing, but these neighborhoods that are maybe 30 minutes from downtown. It's not like you're in the countryside. Um, you start to get a different mix of people, um, which makes me happier, because I like it that Butantã, I run a lot. I like to run. And when I'm running around here, I go down some streets, which you can see that, okay, these are the millionaires. They definitely got, I can see by the houses, by the cars. And then you turn a corner and you say, okay, these are the middle class folks that live nearby. And you walk a little bit more, oh, and there's the favela right there. And then you come up and say, oh, that's a nice little park area. So it's a mix of all different types of folks kind of just living together, different racial types, even. So that makes me happy, living where I live. But you got to go out and search for that. And I think what Andre's saying, it's the same in Rio. You can't just stay in the South Side and expect to find something there that just doesn't really exist there. You're going to get a different lifestyle there. Guys, just real quick, I got this site here, which I thought was pretty funny. How does Rio compare to Sao Paulo? You got obviously higher temperatures. The average temperature is higher. Lower population density in Sao Paulo, in Rio, sorry. Lower unemployment rate, which is surprising. It does have a seaside beach. Okay, $94.2 cheaper rent for a one-bedroom apartment. Sao Paulo is more expensive. One more big sports facility, one more landmark of the UNESCO World Heritage, three versus two. And then in Sao Paulo, you do have cheaper public transport ticket, but your average
Hmm.
salary will be higher. 11 more universities, 5.97 million more inhabitants, greater GDP, four more museums, lower average minimum temperature, of course. It's a little bit further south, but it seems here Sao Paulo beats Rio on a few things like safety, walkability, job opportunities, food and drink, and public transport. And last,
Public
BJ,
transport in Rio is terrible.
yeah,
Oh,
it's not a for public transport friendly city, at
they,
least.
there's they have a train and some buses, but yeah, I've never actually used either of those, so
Yes, and I
can't really
keep
comment on it.
hearing, don't take the yellow line. People always say, don't take that yellow line, man, because it runs straight through some real dangerous, sketchy areas. Um, Now, this last BJ that we did, Pete, we talked about cool apps to use if you're in Brazil. And I didn't
hmm.
mention Numbio. Numbio is kind of cool. It gives you a comparison of cities. You can put any city in the world and it gives you a price comparison. So I put here Sao Paulo and Rio. And again, some things are lower, like rent and stuff like that, but a lot of things are more or less equal. So here, I mean, well, I'm not going to go through the whole thing here, but you see restaurants, how much they cost, even milk, eggs, transportation, utilities monthly. Rio's a bit more expensive. Sports and leisure, childcare, clothing, and shoes. São Paulo is more expensive with that, which makes sense considering what we were just talking about with the dress code down here. The rents, São Paulo more expensive. But Pete made a point earlier, which is the size of São Paulo, that you can live 30 minutes away from downtown, and again, downtown, I mean like the central hub areas, and pay 800 to 1,000 on a nice apartment, 1 bedroom. You know, if you're gonna if you want to be in the middle of the action, that 1,000 is gonna turn into 2,000 like that. So Sao Paulo's got a bit
Mm-hmm.
more options as far as kind of what Andre's doing. Living in Niteroi, he's just right across the bridge from Rio, but just for being outside, it kind of helps to ameliorate that a bit. Um, Got some comments here, guys. São Paulo nightlife, Neo flip flops. São Paulo is Gucci and Prada. All the top models in Brazil go to
Mm-hmm.
São Paulo into the rooftop lounges. Rio's more chill. Both such. Oh, this guy's he's hardcore São Paulo there. Sorry. But
Mm-hmm.
thanks for commenting, Global Paper. Thanks so much. And oh, hello, Carol. How are you? I was interviewed on her channel, Expat Interviews Thriving Abroad. Thanks for always supporting the channel, and I've been watching your stuff, so I'm glad you're still at it. Okay, and doing it. Another Afro expat, but she is
Oh, nice.
Mexico, I believe, but I always forget. I always say it wrong. So if you're not in Mexico, let me know. Um, Guys, we're about ready to wrap things up a little bit, but two great cities, man. I think it has to do with your style. Andre, from what I gather, you're more of a beach person style. Could you ever see yourself living in Sao Paulo?
No. So basically, I actually I I think Sao Paulo is great. I think Medellin is great. I think Bogota is great. I actually really like Sao Paulo. I really like Bogota too. I like Bogota better than Medellin, and for the same reason that I like Sao Paulo, and that's because it has some really great neighborhoods and it's so big. So it's kind of tough to compare a city like Rio de Janeiro with a city like Sao Paulo because they're so different, and there's definitely going
Mm-hmm.
to be a neighborhood here for you,
Hmm.
and now that I know that you have a big kind of like body of water to the south, that's probably where I would go if I lived in Sao Paulo. I would go to as close to the water as possible. But I still think just kind of there's a different attitude of the people, and it's just more hustle and bustle here. Whereas in Sao Paulo or in Rio, it's kind of that super laid back, like nobody's really in a rush to get anywhere. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the people are just chilling and sleeping everywhere, and
Yeah.
uh,
That culture
there's
can be really frustrating to deal with if you come from a Sao Paulo culture, though.
Oh
From a
yes.
business perspective, I've experienced
oh
that
yeah, from an
since the
American culture too.
yeah, well, since the pandemic, I've been working online, so I don't like necessarily just work with people in Sao Paulo anymore. So actually, I think most half my business is actually in Rio de Janeiro, and they're just so much lazier. Like they call it chill, but no, dude, it's not chill. It's fucking lazy.
Yeah, it might even go beyond laziness and just go to like general slow. I don't know, like because
Sloth,
it's just
sloth.
sloth. That's what it is. It's like
Oh God, it's one of
hyper
the deadly
laziness.
sins.
Yeah. Well, because like I don't know, man. People are just late for stuff. It's the same thing in Barranquilla in Colombia. Like when you just living when it's hot and you're by water and like what's the rush really, and like do you really need to call that person back, and
Yeah.
do you really need to show up to work at all? Like it's so hot, like who cares, just relax, what's the big deal,
Does it get
it's
that
just
hot
money.
up there though? I heard like Colombia doesn't get much over 30 degrees most of the time.
Well, when I was in Barranquilla is like right on it's Caribbean weather. So Barranquilla, Cartagena,
Okay.
Santa Marta, you're talking like 90 degrees, 85 degrees every day, year round, pretty much. And Rio's pretty hot.
Hmm.
Definitely gets like I think I was my like second week or third week there. It was like almost in the hundreds. Um, but yeah, that hot weather, man, it's tough to walk fast when it's so hot because you just might like not
It's
make it.
it's
So
hot and it's humid. It's the double whammy. It's not that
yeah,
dry
I
heat.
love it.
I've
It's
been no,
great.
see that's the thing, and same question I asked you. I know for sure I wouldn't survive a week in Rio. I wouldn't be able to live there for all the reasons you mentioned, because I'm kind of frenetic. I'm here, I'm there, I'm walking, boom, boom, and I like that movement. I like to know, hey, I'm gonna meet you at 2. We're gonna be there at 2. I'm gonna meet you next week. We're gonna be there next week, and uh, I wouldn't be able to handle it. And in the weather. So again, guys, it's a lifestyle. I love my friends that love Rio. I have a bunch of them, including I hope I can call Andre a friend now. I just met him, but he's a really nice guy. Uh, and
You
I
got a
really,
friend in me.
oh, there you go. It's getting emotional here. It's the cachaça,
Hmm.
guys. So it's lifestyle. Biggest tip that I think all the expats who have been on this program give, and I certainly do, is test it out. Test it out. Stay there for a month. See how you feel. Go to another place for a month if you can. Maybe the next year or so. See how you feel. Not everything's for everybody. I mean, there's people that love Brasilia, and Brasilia is a dead city. I've been to Brasilia before. It's gorgeous. Like the architecture is gorgeous. It's clean and organized, but it's a dead city. It's dry heat over there. I can handle dry heat a little bit more than humid heat. But there's people that love Goiás. That's like Texas, in Brazil with all the cowboys and all that stuff. So there's a lot to choose from. Folks that love Salvador and stuff like that. But know that some things about these cities are just part of the culture. So if you're here to make that cash, probably you don't want to end up in Salvador. Maybe you can do it in Rio, but it's going to be a little bit tougher. You want to be in São Paulo, you want to be in Curitiba if your thing is I want to make cash. If you got yourself set up, maybe you're a digital nomad, you already got your business. Hey, you have that liberty to I want some beachside property, or beachfront property. And Rio may be the place for you. Salvador may be the place for you. But you got to study up before you make that big definitive move to any of these cities, so you don't get screwed in the end. So
Yeah, I would say yeah. If you're a digital nomad, it's pretty much irrelevant. I
yes,
mean, you can work pretty much. I mean, like I said, half my business is in Rio, and I live in Sao Paulo, so I kind of get the best of both worlds.
I feel you. I feel you. So Andre, I had
Yo,
mentioned this briefly last night, and it's very important. And your visa that you're trying to get, your student visa, relies on you passing this quiz, okay? Because I got connections at the federal police. Okay, so make sure you pay close attention. Yeah.
Oh, you got to send me that, dude.
All
is that your
right.
theme song?
That is the expat challenge music, straight out of what does Latif say? He said it was something like out of an anime. Speaking of anime, but anyway, expat challenge is just a series of questions here. Kind of, I'm sending it to you, Pete. Um, just say whatever comes to your mind first. Don't think too hard about it. What is the best thing about Brazil?
Thinking too hard.
Wait, are you asking me?
I'm asking you what's
Yes,
the best
yes.
thing about Brazil?
Oh, what's the best thing about Brazil? Oh, the
Okay, I got
music,
some thinking
definitely.
music. The people.
I think the best thing about Brazil is the music. I would say the culture, but I think I like the Rio culture more than the Sao Paulo culture because the Sao Paulo culture is kind of like that city culture. So
Hmm.
I would say it's the music and yeah, and I think the music like infiltrates the culture in Niteroi. So for me, being a beach person, like Rio is amazing, and Brazil is amazing because there's so many beaches along. Like it has such a huge coastline, so it's just amazing
Hmm.
for that.
It does have endless coastline. Go ahead, Peter.
Yeah. All right. So, what's the worst thing about Brazil?
The worst thing about Brazil is, oh, I don't know, because there's a lot. Maybe it's the homelessness in the cities. I don't know. That was the thing that freaked me out about Sao Paulo is just like the massive amount of homelessness. But that I guess that's any big city, maybe. But
Yeah.
it seems like Sao Paulo probably has more. Um, Rio definitely does. Probably the kids in the streets is always sad to see. But that's another thing I feel like you could see that anywhere. So
Hmm.
I don't know. Maybe the specter of political instability.
Hmm.
There you go. That's a good
It
one. If you're
seems
here long
stable,
enough.
but like it also seems like it might not be as stable as I think it is.
Yeah, you
Oh,
arrived at a good time for that.
yes. Well, yes, exactly. Now we were talking about that yesterday, and it's funny, guys. When you choose to stay here longer, the politics, whether you like it or not, is going to become part of the daily life. So you'll see that it's definitely not stable. Um, what is your favorite Brazilian food?
Ooh, my favorite Brazilian food is probably, oh man, it just the idea that it's funny because I used to be vegan, but I really like the churrasco and I like I like pasarino. It's like the chicken. It's like their version of fried chicken, pasarino.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
yes,
yeah, yeah,
mango
yeah.
a passarinho.
It,
Yes,
it is pretty much like KFC though.
But I feel
yes.
bad about eating it because it's like baby chickens or something. I don't know,
I
but I
don't know.
guess
I haven't
I mean,
researched what it is, but it's these tiny little chicken wings or legs or whatever thighs, and it is good, man. I mean, if you get a good one, because some of them are dry as hell, but they're
oh,
really.
the dry ones, man, that's a nightmare.
I know,
But
but
yeah,
usually
they're
they
good.
serve it like this with a little lemon, but not exactly sure. Wait, what
Also,
part of
Brazil
the?
doesn't have barbecue sauce. Like, what's up with that?
That is a weird thing. They have every other kind of sauce.
And their ketchup is weird too. I'm sorry.
Mm. Yeah, so I think it's an adult chicken, dude. It's just like it'll be a small one. It's like these tiny little cuts of chicken. It's weird, but
Okay.
it's like mini chickens. I don't think it's baby chickens. I hope not. But okay, it's very popular down here, the frango passarinho. All right, go ahead, Peter.
Yeah. What's your least favorite Brazilian food?
Oh, definitely has to be that sand
Ah,
farofa,
man.
Farofa.
the dirt
Yeah.
food.
Yeah.
Uh,
Exactly. It's sand. It's like thank you. Somebody
kitty
finally
litter.
said this. Yeah. It's
There's
like
the
pouring sand on your
farofa.
food.
There's the farofa. Wait, I'm not showing the picture here of the farofa.
And there's good versions of it. There's like the farofa with eggs, but it's still like it shouldn't be a food.
Oh man,
Yeah.
but it's not a food. Look, I'll tell you, I
It.
converted. I
It's a
converted somebody to
condiment. It's a
farofa.
condiment.
It's a condiment. By the way, guys, on the screen here is the frango passarinho. But then I got to defend farofa as I always do on this podcast. And I have a friend of mine, Monica from England, Zimbabwe, England, and she was adamant against farofa, and then I had to teach her how to eat farofa, which is you got to put it with the right food. It's got to be moist. It's got to be mixed in, and she
Yeah.
fell in love. And the thing is, she went to make a second plate for herself, and she did not like it. I knew how to set that shit up for her, so I'm a farofa lover. I will
Yeah.
defend it to the death.
But
But
you have to apply it yourself, man. Like what I hate are these places where like the Bahia Food Festival yesterday, it came drowned in farofa, right? Like
mm,
you didn't get to apply it the way you want. So like when it's just
yes,
buried in fucking sand, I
yes.
mean
Farofa's not real
shit.
food. It's like food dust. I think it should be banned.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
no, I
think they
mean,
should stop it.
it is a condiment in a sense that what it does is soaks up the juices of whatever food you're eating. So you can't eat it with anything dry. You know, it's good, a little bit of farofa, not too much on a feijoada, on a
It's good with
mocotó.
feijoada. good with
On
vinegar.
something that's got juice is flowing. Even some
Yeah.
meat, if you get that juicy meat and you put some farofa on there, it's gonna soak up all the juices of the meat and it's gonna give the flavor of the meat, the
Yeah, that's
juice
why it's good
plus.
with barbecue. Yeah.
Oh yeah, but if you're just gonna
You
put a
know what?
bunch of
It's
sand
also
on,
really good like without it.
ah,
Yeah,
no, I'm the
I
farofa
agree.
defender here. I will
I do
fight
like
for
it
its
on the
honor.
Espatinos, though. I will
I'll
say
fight
that.
for its
Like
honor.
full
Anyway,
send,
go ahead, Pete.
sucks up the
Question.
fat.
Next
No, that
question.
was me. That was me. You're next.
Oh, okay. Oh, I'm sorry. So, what's your favorite drink here in Brazil? Can be alcoholic or non.
Oh, it definitely has to be. There's two varieties. Obviously, the caipirinha is
Hmm.
delicious, and
Yes.
then the $5 or the 5 reais cachaça
Talk
that
about the
everybody
corochi.
warns me about.
Corochi.
Yes,
Man, this
for the
shit
for the price of
really,
less than $1, you could get
man,
really
it's
drunk.
no,
So I
no,
think
not
it's
really
amazing.
Yeah.
drunk. Like really, like fucked up. Like
It'll
beyond
make your
drunk.
poo stink for days, though.
Yeah, there's the corochi, guys. And yeah, it's deadly. I've had my corochi phase.
My days with that shit are done, man. Like when I was like super poor, and that was like the only way I could like get drunk to go into a show. Um, and then not spend too much money at the show. I would get one of those as pre games, but man, oh, it comes out your skin. It makes your poop stink terribly, and it gets you really fucked up too. Like it's no joke. And like Andre said, it's like less than $1 American. I mean, I think like even nowadays at a normal grocery store, it's like 5 reais.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what's
I like it
weird,
better
man.
than
Is that
Farofa.
yo,
Yeah,
and
it
that's
is
a
better than Farofa.
it's better than what?
Farofa.
Farofa.
Oh, it's better than Farofa. That's fine. No, but the thing with that's weird with Koroch is I remember when it first started here, and it was really like the drunk old dudes, and the old guys in the favela used to drink it, and
Yeah,
then it became popular with the younger crowd still in the favela, and then all of a sudden I go into the extra supermarket and I see that they're selling Koroch. I'm like, oh my god, it's like
yeah.
moving up in the world,
But it's
but
always bottom shelf. It's literally bottom shelf liquor. Like
yes,
you have
yes.
to fucking bend over to tie your shoes to get that stuff at a grocery
Yes,
store.
yes, yes, yes. No, that's
I feel
funny.
like it's some shit you could probably just make in a toilet or something like that. It can't be that hard. It's only a fucking dollar. You probably make that shit.
No, and what's funny is that you see here on this picture, it's like it's multicolors, and you're thinking, the it's gonna be flavored. No, like it all tastes this like the same shit. It's just
uh,
gasoline with
Actually, I have to
colors.
say the coconut version has a pretty coconutty flavor,
Okay,
and the peach version I can't speak to the flavor because I don't remember it. It was years ago, but I tell you, man, like when you go to the bathroom, like the next day, that stuff is still with you, man. Like it'll make it's better for your bathroom than air freshener. It's just like,
Wow.
everything smells peachy now, literally.
That's a
anyway,
good pro tip.
there you go. That is a good pro tip, in case because it's expensive to buy those air fresheners, man.
Hmm.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
people bought all that in the washroom.
yes. Go ahead, Pete. Next question.
All right, best place you have visited in Brazil.
The best place I've visited in Brazil. I haven't really gone to a lot of places, so I'm just gonna say this is controversial. I'm just gonna say Baja Tijuca just because I like the beach, but it's not. I don't think it's the best place. Probably
Mhm.
Rio.
Yeah, I
Rio.
haven't visited that many places either, actually. So I'd say
Well,
Rio is the best place I've visited because it's the only place I've visited.
and what do you think is the most overrated location or thing here in Brazil?
The most overrated thing. Probably that statue of Cristo Redentor,
Oh yes,
Christ the Redeemer.
yes.
I dug that actually.
I'm with
Maybe
Andre,
it's because I
man.
haven't actually been on top of it, but I've
Oh
seen it from the ground, and just looks like a statue of Jesus.
You know, there's
Yeah,
like
but it's
three
super
types of them.
cheap for a major tourist attraction, and it's got a great view.
Yeah, I need to go
There's like,
visit it. I usually I visited a couple. I went to one in Ecuador and I went to one in Colombia. So maybe I'll go check it out.
yeah, there's a bunch of these Christ Redeemer statues. Actually, I think there's one that's even taller than the one in Rio. I didn't even know this, but it's like
Yeah, the
cottage
Catholics were
in the
busy
shape.
down here, man.
Yeah, cottage
Real
in the
busy.
shape of Jesus. I went to one in Iguapi, which is really nice. Uh, but I'm with you though. I've been to the top of the Christ Redeemer statue, and I thought it was underwhelming. I thought that the better view was Pão de Açúcar. Like Pão de Açúcar, I fell in love with. I went up that little tram. I felt like I was in 007. Got all my childhood memories watching Popeye in Rio, going up the tram. And the view up there is gorgeous, and it's more panoramic, and there's more space to walk, and there's a little botanical garden up there on top of Pão de Açúcar. There's restaurants. When you go up to the Christ Redeemer, it's almost like, I don't know if you've been up to the Statue of Liberty. It's kind of that thing where you're up there and you just gotta walk around in a circle just because there's people behind you. I mean, it's bigger obviously than being on the head of the
Yeah,
Statue of Liberty, but it's kind of like that thing, like keep it moving, keep it moving, keep it moving. Take your famous little tourist shot in front of the statue with your arms wide open, whatever, and keep it moving. But Pão de Açúcar was chilled, man. I was like, I would chill up there, and there's restaurants and everything. So I imagine you could probably do just that, and just grab some drinks and enjoy the view. So I think it was overrated. Anyway, all right, we're almost finished here. Go ahead. I think is it Pete?
it's mine. Yes. Best place to chill in your city.
Best place to chill in Niteroi. Obviously, going to be the beach. There's a lot of really nice beaches. Probably Leme Beach is the best place to chill because
Mm,
it's just super diverse. You'll even get people going like topless. It's that comfortable for women there, and yeah, it's real chill. There's not people like running around stealing stuff that I've seen, so I like it. And lots of beautiful people there. If you want to try your game out.
there's
So
Lemmy right there on the screen, and that does look pretty. Lemmy, I've heard of Lemmy, but I've never.
Yeah, that's nice.
I didn't know it was in Niteroi. I thought it was a neighborhood of Rio.
oh no, Lemmy's in is like Posta One in Rio de Janeiro.
Oh, I thought you said it was Niteroi.
No, no, no.
Okay, there you go then. And let's see here. We're almost done. We got favorite Brazilian musician or band.
Ooh, I like I don't know the names. I like the guy who sings My Pai or Pai My Puro Beleza
Oh,
Coração Javan or something.
Djavan. Everybody loves Djavan.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah.
Um
I was just listening to him with what's the saxophonist, David Sanborn. Man, what a tight band.
I like
Yes.
Milton Nascimento,
Milton's
Gilberto, some of the old
nice.
school
Yeah.
guys.
Mm.
Milton Nascimento is incredible. Yes, not that dude, whoever the hell that was.
And
But
then some guys who do funky. I like funk music a lot. So
I did too. Ugh, that's where I was on Saturday. I was funking out all night.
Mhm.
You just got to deal with the crowd, which isn't always the brightest, but I love the music. And last question is on Pete.
Yeah, a word of advice for future visitors to the country.
all right. So my advice, if you're from a big city and you're coming to Sao Paulo, you're fine. If you're like New York, Chicago, Atlanta, any of those places, and you go to or any big city and you go to Sao Paulo, you know what to do. Everything's fine. If you're from like a small town and you're coming to Rio or Sao Paulo, like watch yourself. Uh, and
Hmm.
I think Sao Paulo's fine, but like I think Rio, they're looking for tourists in Rio. So my friends almost got robbed in Rio, so they're looking for tourists. So just be on your p's and q's and don't be like super jeweled out with gold and things. Um, and also, if you're coming to Rio, I guess my advice would be to don't bring that many clothes and just buy clothes when you get here, because probably the clothes you're going to bring are too warm and too
Mm-hmm.
like conservative. You need to show some skin. So
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
I that's great advice. And it does show a little bit of the difference because we were out last night on one of the main strips, and people are out with their watches and their purses and everything. So it's got a different vibe here as far as crime is concerned. Um, and whereas Rio, yeah, if you probably don't need to walk around with that gold necklace, just leave it at home.
yes.
So wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. You want to share your social media spaces? Of course, guys, I'll be linking all of that stuff in the comments or the description of the video. But share with us a little bit of what you're doing social media wise.
So yeah, back when I left the country, I started a YouTube channel, and I've debated changing the name a bunch of times, but for right now, it's Andre every other day, and my Instagram is that too. And basically, what I want to do with that YouTube channel is just to slowly turn it into a travel encyclopedia with just information that, and stories that are useful for other people traveling. So what I've learned and kind of sharing my experiences. And there's a lot of great YouTubers out there. So I'm trying to fill a niche that is not being fulfilled, which is just straight information. So, but I've been moving around so much, changing countries. But now that I'm settling
Uh-huh.
down in Brazil, I'm gonna have more time to do that.
There you go. There's the Instagram page, guys. Andre every other day. And the YouTube page, which I showed earlier, but there it is again. Got a lot of topics here. Um, why I left. That's a good one. So, folks, that is about it. I had a good time. I'm enjoying my cachaça, enjoying talking to some cool people. I'm thankful to everybody, like I said, who likes and subscribes and listens to us. And Andre and I actually will be together, I guess, this coming Sunday, um, talking in a group about coming to Brazil. So look out for that. It's on another lady's page, Helen. She does the call and then she uploads it to her page. So when I get all that, I'll link it somehow, some way here to our page. So I look forward to that. That's going to be a fun talk. And real interesting guy. I really liked meeting you yesterday. So that was a highlight of the weekend. And follow his pages, guys. Support the man. Because he is doing some good work down here. And that's about it. If you got any last words, Andre, feel free to speak them now.
Yeah, I guess my last words would be for the people listening: if you are not traveling and you're thinking about traveling, get your passport. It's funny. I just interviewed you yesterday, and you were saying to people, be worried. Take care when traveling, because in Brazil things are about to get crazy politically and economically. But my thing is, just don't wait, because I'm if you wait, there might be a pandemic, and I wouldn't even wait till the pandemic
Yeah.
was over. I would
Yes,
just if you want to travel, get your passport and just do it. Don't be afraid. Bad things can happen to you wherever you are, and good things can happen to you wherever you are. So you might as well
exactly.
just do it.
I agree with that. And yeah, guys, I was just interviewed on for his channel, so I'll link that when it's up. But what I also said, which I think is important, is just have an escape plan. Go, see the
Hmm.
world. Just make sure you got that money in case shit does hit the fan and you can get out quick. But I'm with you. Like, don't wait. Life is short. All right, just be smart about it. So that's it, folks. I have outro music. Here it is. Thank you for listening to the Brazil Expat Journal, the BJ you can trust. We will be back again in 2 weeks and probably talking about hiking. I hope to get my friend John on and give you good tips on places to hike in São Paulo because unbelievably, this city does have a lot of green area. It's got
It
the biggest
does.
chunk of Atlantic forest, um, in Brazil, I believe. So there's a lot of good hiking areas, a lot of good parks here, and you'll get to see a little other side of the concrete jungle that's greener. So that's it. Thank you very much, y'all.
Thank
Have
you
a
so
good
much, everybody. Thank you, Andre.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, we're out of here.
Peace.